one plus one. You're giving me attention. And then you're making me those, and I really need those, and I need that one by one.
Welcome to another episode of the Pepper Soup Talk Show. My name is Aki. Here my partners Sekou and Toby. And today we wanted to do something a little bit different, to wrap up the year 2022. We've taken, first of all, I'd like to thank everyone who's been tuned in with us on Pepper Soup Talk. We're in season 2, and we've taken all of your feedback to heart. Mm-hmm. And so something that we want to do is start to share a little bit more about ourselves. And so as you can see, we have no guests on the table today. So bear with us as we kind of do a different rendition of the show. And so to start, how you guys doing? Sekou, Toby, we come to the end of the year.
Yeah.
And
that's a great question.
Sekou was just talking about hiring a bodyguard.
So how we doing? It's just always important to just think about how we doing at the moment. I'm excited. I'm nervous at the same time.
Yeah,
I am about to finally return home to Guinea. It's been so long. And what is so nervous about this is it's just like, I just feel like even though I was born in Guinea, it's almost like going back into another foreign land.
Yeah.
And I'm just nervous about what it's going to feel like coming back home and how I'm going to be received. Currently, when I'm here sitting with you guys, I feel like I'm comfortable.
Yeah.
I'm comfortable. This is like my natural zone.
Yeah.
But it's always this sense of like, Guinea's also home. But is it really going to be like home now?
Yeah.
But I'm also excited how this experience is really going to connect me back to my root, because I do think that's important. And I'm excited about how it's also going to inspire me.
Yeah.
And how this experience is really going to push me forward. I'm excited about the warm weather too.
I think what's interesting about it is because, the three of us, Toby and I, we're Nigerian from Guinea, and we spent most of our life here.
Right.
And we're also people, we represent our culture here.
Right.
And so now, in your case, for example, going back to Guinea and actually being there in Guinea, you got to be asking yourself, what do I expect? What to really expect?
Yeah. So it's gonna be interesting. Yeah. How you feel, Toby?
Man, I'm good. I'm staying in the States, got that to worry about.
Right.
But looking for better and new things in the new year. You know what I mean?
Right.
But I was just gonna interject to what you said. Like even with my folks when they go back, compared to them versus us, they grew up there. Yeah. Then they go back periodically. There's that disconnect.
Right.
Because there's a level of Americanness you bring once you're disconnected for a minute.
Yeah.
Right.
And then you go back, they'll be like, you're acting brand new.
Right.
Or the last thing you remember of your home country is the last time you were there.
Right.
And they're like, nah, we don't do that no more. So there's always a conditioning, going back and forth. Yeah. And, just... It's okay to feel a little bit disconnected, because it's not the same lifestyle, it's not the same thing, and take it with a grain of salt.
Yeah.
But the bigger question is, so this security guard we're talking about, right?
I'm not about to make you talk shit about me.
No, we're not. So the two things I wanted to get straight was usually so it's not uncommon for people to hire security when they're going back home. Usually when there's like big events like weddings, at least for my folks that go back, weddings, like funerals or stuff like that, that's the major stuff. Because like we were mentioned before, it can't be too flashy when other people are trying to, still make it out there.
Right.
And there's a different poverty here.
Right.
It's different from what poverty looks like over there.
Right.
And, looking like a come up, looking like a come up. Looking like a come up, and you're not, you're from there, but you're not really from there. Anything can go left at any point in time, especially when people are, expecting you to come there. So the thing I wanted to just ask about you, because for my folks, it's like very big things. They get security, but I don't think you're doing any events, anything like that. Just casual and just
no. I'm just going home to really go back to like places that I was born, trying to see it, trying to really like reset my memory, because it's just faded at this point. But like you said, the poverty is no joke. It's in your face. Like, even, and that also goes to like, we could all relate to that. Being African living in America, there's a sense of like burden on you where you feel like you constantly have to be the one to have to take
care of people,
part of your earning, and it's sending home. And then, we all get once in a while get that phone call from your auntie or your uncle. They want you to send some money so they could bless you. So who knows what they do with the money? So yeah. But I just think at the end of the day, like we talked a lot about like how privileged we are. But it's just also such this double sword, right? Are we really privileged here in America, and what privilege look like? But then
expand on that. Expand on that. Because I know what you're saying.
Right.
I want you to elaborate on that though, because when you think about America and America in the context of the world, you think about the American dream,
right?
And we know like a lot of people who come to the States, like that's oftentimes why you come here. Even the birth of the country, right? It's about a new land. It's about the American dream,
right?
But you say, are we really privileged to be here? Like, what? Expand on that. What do you mean by that?
I think you could look at it in a way that I always believe, like us being African, we have this sense of privilege of like we know where we come from, right? So there's this sense like it's knowing where you come from, like originally, like knowing where your family come from. It kind of gives you a starting point, right? And it kind of serve as a motivation for a lot of us, right? And then that's when we come to America, we kind of feel like, I gotta make it, because this says like it's not everybody who gets this opportunity, right? But I also think like that's what the problem is. Once you come into America, you realize like you're talking about this American dream, and then you realize this American dream ain't for everybody. It's not. It's only for the few. So, but go ahead, Toby.
No, I was just going to say that is true. Imagine, like you were saying, people from back home would ask for some favor, some money here and there.
Right.
Imagine if it was the reverse. You're here in America and you're asking people from home for money, like, yo, I'm struggling. People don't understand the concept. Like, okay, you got in here, but like sustaining yourself and stuff is a different level. Even when I have some folks who came from Nigeria to come and visit us, sometimes they're surprised there's like actually poor people in America. They're like, they don't show this in the movies or in the media and stuff like that. They're like, so America is not that special. After they visit, there's, if they go, like, most West Africans go to like New York, Baltimore, Philly, they're like, oh, it's just as dirty. Well, some areas as dirty and impoverished in some areas. So the concept of struggling in America is kind of a disconnect. Sometimes we are privileged, but the amount of privilege people think you have is not, we ain't kings over here, or at least not yet. We're trying to get to that, that status. One way or another, we're gonna make it. But till then, there's, at least for more people, there's more obligation to take care of, people back home than here. At least for you, I know you came when you were like 10?
Yeah, I was 10 years old.
So you have more connection. I came when I was like 4.
Yeah.
I believe you were
I was born here, yeah.
So the more people are familiar with you, they were like, oh, Sekou, I took care of you when you were 2 years old.
Right.
Yeah, I have my kid now, and don't have money for food, but can you spot me?
Right.
Like, you're taking care of a whole family.
Right.
You're still, in your early career, trying to find an apartment, trying to invest, trying to do things to move you forward. But at the same time, you have this burden, like, I thank God I'm making money, but I still gotta make sure my people are good,
right?
But they don't understand the standard of living is kind of eating your paycheck.
When a lot of us travel back, we travel back with multiple suitcases.
Right.
Back of people have the requests, especially things that you can find here. Sometimes it's the only things that you can even find here.
Right.
What does your suitcase look like right now? People asking for.
Well, my suitcase.
Bring me a cheesesteak.
My suitcase is literally like a lot of survival kits. All right. So
it's like we're having like he going to war.
Yeah, a lot of survival kids preparing for the worst, assuming the best, but preparing for the worst, right? So I think like at the end of the day, it's let's not get caught up into this whole, like, I just came from America. I'm going home. Everything is good. Like, I'm all good.
Yeah.
Like, I'm still young, man.
Yeah.
I'm still trying to really figure out my life.
Right.
So I'm not gonna go there and try to like make it look like I got $100 million. You know what I mean? I'm still living paycheck to paycheck.
You're not going out there and be Funk Master Flex.
No, I'm not. I'm not going out there. Like, I'm gonna go out there and I'm just gonna be myself.
Yeah.
Dude, I don't mind having those conversations with the people that are close to me. But at the end of the day, like, I just don't think like I don't have to finesse all that. I'm at the point in my life right now where I just want to be authentic.
Yeah.
If I feel like I want to give something to somebody, I'll give what I have.
Right.
I have a budget. So I'm not disrespecting my budget. You feel me? Like, I just think when you start thinking like that, this is the thing about this concept of what do you guys think about it? It's like, are you acting American or you Americanized? Like you American, like that's a bad thing, right? One thing I do respect about being America, being here, it's like you really understand the value of money. You learn, like, in a way, right? 50-50. Toby's pushing back. But I don't think at the end of the day, though, in America, like, it's not like back home where this concept that if Aki is working, Aki is making the money, everybody goes to Aki's house and Aki's feeding everybody, right?
Yeah.
I just think that sort of culture and mindset changed a little bit in America. I don't care what country in Africa you come from.
Yeah.
I feel like that's a shift. Like, if I gotta go to your house, I expect that you're gonna contribute something.
In America,
right? But I just feel like in Africa, it's this concept like, oh, like, we're gonna go. If I go to your house, I'm expecting you gonna take care of me if I'm a guest. As long as I'm a guest, it's a beautiful thing. But at the end of the day, that system, it's not. It's kind of like, I don't think it's. That's one thing I've learned. Like, in America, it's kind of like, yo, you have the opportunity, you have a job.
Yeah.
I'm expecting that when we do something, you're gonna contribute. I'm not gonna like. It's not forced, but it's assumed. The expectations are there.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. The expectations are there, though. Like, if I'm even going on a trip with my brothers, and I know, like, I could be making more. Yeah, I don't mind contributing a little more, but at the end of the day, I'm still expecting my brothers to contribute financially.
So I think there's two sides to that.
Right.
So one thing I guess America is a it has a very large middle class population.
Right.
But if you go back to the continent, there really isn't no middle class. It's either you're ultra rich or you're ultra poor.
Right.
And if you're lucky enough to have a family member that's in the ultra rich, they have to take care of you. And then on the other side, there is a kind of a sense of entitlement. I do agree with that.
Right.
Sometimes we'd be like, you got it. Why not help us out? We all came from the same place. And it's just some of the systematically.
What?
Systematically, y'all know what I mean. But some of the systems, it doesn't allow people from the ultra poor to move into even the middle class like that.
Right.
For example, Nigeria, for God knows how long, people complain, all the universities, they have strikes. It takes you like 10 years for some. This is the extreme case. Don't have this delusion. The extreme case, some people might take 10 years to get a bachelor's.
I mean, you hear about that universities going on strike. And, you're in school, grad school even, you're on strike for 2 years, 3 years. You're looking for something to do in the meantime. And I think, I will say that's really one upside to being here, though, because being able to progress in socioeconomically. Like you could come here and hard work does get rewarded. You know that there's structural issues, there's systemic issues, but you can come here and whether you have nothing or something and get to sort of that next step and without as many barriers.
And I think that's what makes the disconnect. Now that we're talking about it, because in the continent, you're either, for the most part, you're either ultra wealthy or ultra poor. Just putting it there, but people don't understand the middle class. You're not poor, but you're not rich. But, I can't help all y'all like that.
It's part of it is just grounded in perception, right? Like sometimes you kind of have to try to put yourself in other people's shoes, but part of it is also sometimes you guys ever feel guilty?
I was gonna ask you that.
You asking me? I'm asking you.
No. It was gonna be a question. Like, do you ever feel guilty for you can either save this, I don't know, $100, or you can send the $100 back home. And there's always that middle line, like, man, what's the right thing to do? You might screw yourself over not saving for your future, but some people home, they can't even get extreme case food to eat.
You know what's interesting though? In my case, I remember growing up, my dad always used to, when we were eating at home and I didn't want to finish my food, he always said, people in Africa, people in Nigeria, they don't have food. Or you probably hear things like that. And then I remember the first time I went back to Nigeria and I was in my grandma's compound and she lives in Surulere. And my cousins, they're playing, at the time it was like N64 and things of that nature. But all like the American things, they had it there, and it shifted my whole perspective on life. And NEPA would take light, and then the generator would come on. So it's like,
for people who don't know, NEPA is the power system in Nigeria. So
so it's interesting.
It's a little things, right? Like I say, when you ask me what am I packing, my suitcase is survival things. I listen. I got a flashlight from Amazon. I got to prepare for that. Because the power is not consistent in Africa. So, but it's little things that I feel like we take it for granted here in America, like hot water. You never have to worry about like power going out. If you need to get food, like you could get food, you could pay, you have access to things it's efficient, basic things, right? But in Africa, you realize like just for you to have access to basic things that you need, it takes so much hustle and bribing for you to get to that point. It's like somebody who has something, everybody will be like, all right, if something something that you need might cost you $5. You realize you end up paying $20 for that. It's like I'll give you some information, but what you willing to give, you know? So it's just like this cycle of like literally everyone is just trying to survive and hustle. Right. So in a way that once they figure out like, you definitely come from the motherland, you already become like a cash, a cash. What's the word?
Cash cow.
Yeah. That's what you are. But, it's just. I'm glad we're having this conversation because I do think like we are really constantly navigating these two space of like what it means for us. Like I know here we're sitting here, we like when people ask us what's your identity, we probably say like I'm African. You know, we carry it with a pride.
Right.
But you know,
when you go back
to the motherland, you know, so you gotta take off your hat. Like I'm actually thinking about cutting my hair low. Like, I like my hair because it keeps me warm. I like this look, but like even going back home, like my brother was telling me the other day, he's like, "So you going home?" I said, "Yeah," and he goes, "You gotta look presentable."
I feel like that notion changed though.
Yeah.
Do you mean like presentable, like low cut, clean?
Yeah, low cut, clean, everything. I can't have this because then some people might look at this haircut, especially the elders, might look at this haircut like disrespect or like you too Americanized. Because I that's what my brother was saying. Like you got to cut this. So he already implementing like. Putting that in my conscience. So now I'm thinking like, man, how am I going to re-enter this space that I've left a long time ago? Yeah. But at the same time, like, I also feel like as a human being, we love to be accepted. Yeah. We don't want to go there. We don't want to outstand too much. We don't want to draw too much attention. Yeah. Because not all of those attention are going to be positive attention. So I kind of don't, if I got to cut my hair to make sure like, the focus is not on my appearance, which is to me, like, that's something like I think is important. Yeah. I'm gonna cut this hair low so I could make sure like my attention is focused on the thing that's important, which is like really connecting back to my root. Now people focus more on like what I'm wearing, how
I think that's more of a generational thing. Yeah. I know for at least my parents, this is the thing, they prefer. Even me having a beard, they'd be like, you at least, in Nigeria, you're either Christian or Muslim. He was like, "Are you a Muslim now?" or something like that, or whatever. But I think in Nigeria, it's more accepting to do whatever hairstyle or whatever you want to do. Like, I'm not sure what's going on.
That actually, you saying that, and speaking on Nigeria, and even Nigeria versus Guinea, for example, I feel like from conversations that we've had, it sounds like Guinea has some very hardcore traditions. Yeah, even more so than maybe Nigeria or some other countries.
Well, I can't speak for Nigeria, but
I felt you've given great perspective on Guinea. So something I'm wondering about is so Guinea, I know you got Conakry.
Yeah, Conakry. Guinea Conakry. That's the capital.
The capital. How modernized is Guinea in general? And then we started having this conversation off air about arranged marriages. Right. And what is that? And we know each other a long time. Right. So I know that's a very regular thing in Guinea. Right. And so, what can you speak more on that?
Right. I mean, at the end of the day, like tradition is like important in Guinea. And I again, and also in Africa in general. And part of this tradition is that's still going on is this concept of when you reach certain age, like, your parents start having that conversation with you, like, when you're going to get married, you're going to settle down. I mean, arranged marriage is still a thing. Yeah. It's a huge part, like, especially like, my, my culture, like I'm half Fulani. I'm a product of two tribes, half Fulani, half Susu. Arranged marriage is very prevalent in the Fulani culture.
Just a quick interjection. Nigeria has Fulani people also.
Oh yeah, so Fulani's everywhere, but Fulani are just very how do I describe this tribe? They're very close knit.
They keep the tradition.
They keep the tradition to themselves, and they speak their own languages. They have their own clothing. It's almost like they also economically independent. They literally run commerce. So, and given all that, they have their very, very strict traditions. So, and what that looks like, there's a marriage between the cousins, even your direct cousin, and for me, an example is, I had, my aunt when I was young. She was my cousin's this is gonna be your wife. Cause I was young, I didn't take this stuff seriously. I love my aunt. And she's like, oh yeah, cause in part of it, you don't know, you can't think it's a praise. It's a praise. It's an honor. You know what I mean? And for me is, man, what could have possibly have happened if I had been raised in Guinea?
Right.
I would think that was normal.
Right.
Because I was conditioned that way, right? But
because culturally it is.
Culturally it is. It's accepted.
Right.
You can marry your cousin. Yeah. And then also it's within the way it works, your dad, you and I are really close friends. We know each other for a long time. Right. And if I have a son, right, for example, and you have a daughter, all you gotta do be yo, Sekou, I have this beautiful daughter, and I'll be kid, we have a son. It's done deal. That's it. So you introduce, and then at the point, your son will be it's not like they have a lot of say. Because by marrying my son marrying your daughter, you honor me. So this right.
So I'm thinking, no disrespect. Did y'all watch Game of Thrones and stuff like that?
I watched the Game of Thrones. Yeah, I've seen it.
When they be married, all families and stuff like that. No disrespect.
But it's not. But I think part of this is keeping it's preserving the culture. Preserving the tradition, the bloodline, but also it's also the names, even the last names. Right? Because it's in Guinea, you tell me your last name,
you can tell.
I could already tell your whole line, your lineage. Right? I could already tell your lineage. And before you marry somebody, this is your parents would do research.
Here. I think for Nigeria, all you need is your last name, and where your father's from.
Right.
I think, I'm not sure if Akinyemi is a common last name, but they just need your name, and y'all from Sulu, Sulu. Right. I mispronounced that terribly.
That's where my grandparents live. But we're from I want to say Sekou. It's a city, in Lagos.
Gotcha. If your mom sees this video, will she stamp that?
Actually,
I think she will. But my mom is actually Edo.
Oh, really?
Right.
Yeah.
Your mom's Edo?
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Yeah, my dad is Yoruba.
Oh, wow.
So I'm also half.
Yeah. You half. I'm sure there was a lot of pushback on both sides. Expect the pushback.
Wait. So, quick question.
Yeah.
Sorry. So since you're Fulani, I'm assuming your dad's Fulani because that's the predominant tradition in your household.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So no, you assume your dad.
Yeah. But you never specified Fulani was your mom's side or your.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So
So you assume it's more your mom's side. Your dad's side is that's it. You assume that your dad's last.
So it would be the same thing.
Yeah. That's it. So if you
technically, as people would consider me Yoruba.
Yeah.
However, interestingly, I'm very connected to my Edo side.
Mm.
And I even know more. I'm not fluent in either languages, but I know more Edo, for example, than I do Yoruba.
I'm surprised. Especially the dad would be gung ho, like, this is the family history. This is where we're from. Especially if, your grandparents, was that your mom's parents or your dad's parents?
My dad's parents.
Especially if you meet the grandparents, they'd be like, I don't know, every time you meet older folks, they give you history of 10, 20 generations.
Right.
I'm not going to remember this, but that's dope.
So, you know, over here, like they're punching your social. Like, they get your background check. Like, you know, back home, they just need your last name. And I just think we all been through it. You know, I've dated some girls from Guinea, and then they just be like, what's your last name? And I already know when they ask that question. I already know what that means. You know, or they be like, what's your mother name? Yeah. Like, what's your dad name? I already know that exactly that's what they like about to do. They about to really do some background check and figure out like, yo, is my parents gonna be okay with this? And then and that itself already, like that's almost like your interview process.
You know what though? When it comes to that tradition, there's a part of it looking at it from the, let's say, the Guinea perspective, or from because like Asusu people. Do they have that tradition in that same way, or is it a Fulani thing?
No, it's mainly Fulani.
Fulani, okay.
Mainly Fulani. Susu people are a lot more relaxed. About those things, but
because there's a checks and balances aspect to that. Because when you think about arranged marriages, from what I understand, a lot of arranged marriages work out even more than non-arranged marriages. Like you hear about how, because think about like in the US, the divorce rate is high, right? 50+%. Apparently the divorce rate for arranged marriages is very.
Are you saying this because you had like multiple arranged marriages? Are you speaking from personal experience? You know,
I've always been intrigued by it. You know, I'm a numbers person, so I hear statistics, but it's I've always been intrigued by that, and I don't plan on having an arranged marriage. Yeah, I just want to put that on record. But I've always been intrigued by that.
Oh, sorry, I cut you off. Oh no, I was just gonna say I heard the same thing. And I'm not sure if y'all saw this Netflix show. It's an Indian show. I think Indian Matchmaker. I forgot what it's called. And then just talking to a few people, the perception of marriages in some countries is definitely different from what it is in the US. They kind of romanticize and phrase
like the role of marriage.
Yeah, what marriage is. While within a lot of not Western, or, you know, the other side of the world, it's more of it's a duty. It's not like there's no love in the marriage, but, you know, it's more like, you know, I have to do this for my family. Not in the sense of, it sounds bad, not in the sense of, oh, I'm in the marriage just because I have to be. I'm in the marriage because I know there's a purpose for this. We got to do this for each other. We got to do this for the family. Instead of isolating it for like, what is my happiness in this marriage? And happiness is subjective and it's transitory. You know?
I mean, again, we just got to be mindful of the society that we live in. Like, I feel like U.S. is very much like is based on this individualism. Like what I think, what makes me happy is what comes first, and then you have African culture, which is based a lot of a collective mindset. But at the same time, like we sitting at this table, it's 3 African men sitting at this table, right? This kind of experience and this topic might be different for African women. I also think it's important that we sitting here as, again, 3 African men, like we having these conversations, because I feel like these are conversations we constantly be having on our head. You know, these are conversations that need to be had. How is like growing up in America is consistently sometimes conflicting with who we think we should be versus like who we really are. Right?
That's deep.
Right.
Do you ever find yourself in conflict of what you want to really do versus, you know, what you actually mold yourself into doing? at this age. It's different, you know, when you're younger, you feel a little bit more, but you know, at your grown age, what kind of settles you in the path that you decide to take for yourself now?
Yeah, like I said, you are a product of your experience, and sometimes we downplay how important your experience is.
Yeah,
like I said, I just feel like my experience. Some people come into this country, they kind of go right into the African community, right? So it becomes easier to replicate those tradition and norms that we have. So you kind of don't see it.
Okay, basically living that
sort of right, because you're eating the food, you're talking the same language, the people looks like you, think like you. The only difference is winter. When winter comes, you realize like, oh snap, I'm in America. But then some of us literally have a different trajectory, right? Where like I came here, I spent a little bit of time in New York with my family, but then I went and was raised in DC with with like, you know, and like a white Irish family. You know what I mean? Yeah. So that completely had an impact on me. Was I able to still like retain my identity? Yeah. But did that also, like my experience growing up in that like sort of like space that is, you know, privilege. It's a privileged space where I really get to learn what privilege look like. But it doesn't necessarily mean like these people are like just everything is given to them. Yeah. They still working for everything they have. But I was one of the few African people at my school, and also in that, like in DC at that time, when everybody didn't look like me, everyone didn't sound like me. So it was different. So when you look at going through that and then going through college, now I'm coming in contact with Toby, I'm coming in contact with Aki, like. And I'm telling you, I'm African. And then the moment I start opening up my mouth and start really like saying certain things, and you start talking certain things, and then that's when we start like we start to see like, yo, how I think about certain things, how I act is different than what Toby think. But then you're coming in contact with Nigeria, you're coming in contact with Ghana, coming in contact with like South Africans. But then we all sit there and we all like, oh yeah, we all part of this African clubs. Yeah. You know, African United.
Shout out to Pasta.
Exactly. But you realize like, yo, I'm a little bit different than I love that we're all African, but I think there's this part of you that you're like, yo,
you know what though?
My experience is a little different.
You know what though? I think that's
how I felt when I was
I think that's everybody to an extent,
right? In
different ways,
right?
Because when you grow up here, you're straddling cultures.
Yeah,
you're and that experience might look different for different people,
right?
And so in your case, you know, you had your experience in New York.
Yeah.
You had experience in DC.
Yeah. And the two were two different, completely different worlds. We're talking about like New York, Project, Brooklyn, Queens. You know what? People hanging out on the street. Like you can't walk in certain blocks. And then going straight to DC where you walk in a nice fancy like neighborhood where like the houses are beautiful. Yeah. The grasses are cut.
Yeah.
You feel safe.
Just interject, not all of DC sweet.
Not all of it. Not only only the part. The certain part is nice. But what I'm saying, like it was a completely different world. Did these two experiences had a lot of impact on me? Did I have a lot of conflicting argument in my head? Yeah. Like who am I? Who are you really?
Yeah.
But then I get to a point now where like I just realized, like, you know what? Yeah. It's cool. It's okay. Embrace it.
Right.
You get to be the one that actually bridge the gap. Like you the bridge. You're not part of both worlds.
That's true.
Because you're in between, and I have to be okay with. And that took a lot of therapy.
And I think that because it ultimately it becomes a power, and it becomes an advantage.
It does.
And
yep.
when you get to that point,
when you learn to embrace it, but embracing it is also the challenge.
I grew up in a very, very Nigerian household. Like my dad is as Nigerian as they come, but I grew up in a white Jewish neighborhood, and so it was like straddling between white America, Black America, and Nigeria / African culture.
So we say like that more like the middle class.
Yeah.
So you were like the middle class Nigerians.
Wait, real quick, was your school predominantly Jewish or Black or?
So my school, it changed as I went through grade school.
Gotcha.
However, I'm from a city y'all know called New Rochelle, and it's a very diverse city. So my high school was actually it was like 3,000 people in my high school.
That's wild.
50% Hispanic, actually.
Oh, word.
Yeah, 50% Hispanic.
Very diverse.
Yeah, I say maybe 20% Black. Like, so it was very diverse.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, it was, and I say that because, I love my hometown. Shout out to Neuro, 914. But I say that because you're talking about your experience straddling cultures.
Yeah.
But it was kind of that same sort of probably conversations I was having,
right,
or conflicts that I went through that maybe I wasn't even aware of back then because I'm a child and I'm just seeing what I'm seeing and I'm being exposed to different things.
Right.
But it was different cultures. So you hear one thing in the household, and then you'll hear something else outside, and then you hear something else in different space.
Right.
And this is all a part of what is becoming formative for me. But then at some point, it's a journey, right? But you wrestle with these things, and then I think for me, it's like you ultimately kind of come to a point, and it's still a journey I'm on, but to a point where you decide what it is. You have to decide, like, who do you want to be? Like, who do you want to be at the end of the day? And what do you want to take?
Right.
From, because we speak about like individualism in the U.S. versus more communal community in Africa. And one of the things I love so much about growing up in Nigerian household was that community aspect. There was always people at our places, the Nigerian parties you'll go to, all like the cousins and people I know who weren't, I may not have even been related to, but I knew them as cousins, like, or aunties or uncles, like, and so I always loved that so much about our culture, and it's something that I feel holds a lot of Americans back sometimes when you don't have that sort of support, family support system or network, and so I love that about it. However, the things I also like about American culture that I'm able to take, and so it's definitely, but then you don't realize some of the maybe conflicts that you have that you ultimately end up wrestling with through time and through like awareness of like
I want to go back to Toby too, because you grew up in like that middle class African household. Yeah. Like, here I was coming from Guinea, then going right to New York. I thought like my dad was rich, we got a lot of money. Yeah. And then moving to the project, I'm like, what the F? Yeah. What is this? Yeah. Like, for real, what is this? Yeah. Like, at the same time, I have to humble myself. Right? I'm like, what? This is not what I thought it was. But and then moving from that to going to like DC, where like shooting up to like what we all sometimes aspire to be, right? This is the end goal here, go to school. So I just went right into that world. Yeah. But I just want to also hear Toby. Like, Toby, I know you from Baltimore. Like, when you what was that like growing up in Baltimore?
So I grew up in Randallstown.
Yeah,
it's in Baltimore County. Oh, you've been to Randallstown?
So I was young. I was watching The Wire. I'm like, yo, you ain't gonna see me in Baltimore for a minute. But I've been in Baltimore. Aki and I went there. We loved it. It was nice. Back to you.
Yeah, I grew up in Randallstown.
Olivia.
Right.
Yeah, Randallstown was cool. It was diverse in the sense there's different colored Black people. There's barely any white people in the community.
So was it like a more working class?
Yeah, it was more working class. Like, I guess it's middle class. Ish. I honestly don't know. But for the most part, it was just straight Black people. And, going through grade school, it might be the same.
So when you say straight up Black people, you mean like African American?
African, or mixed. Okay.
So like a majority, Black Americans, but then, there's, it's mainly Nigerians, maybe a couple of them in there. As kids, we don't really. So I came here as, when I was 4. It's not really more of an identity or shift, I should say, because I'm still developing in who I am. But for some reason, I still had an accent. I was actually in the ESL for like 3 years. Yeah.
I was in the ESL too.
It's crazy though. I was in ESL also, but I didn't even have it. I keep looking at my name. I ain't gonna start. That's crazy. My mom tells a story sometimes of coming to a PTA meeting, and they got me in ESL, and I was like, "What's going on here?" Like, you don't, because they were speaking English at home,
right?
Because again they're from different tribes, and so it was but it was straight up like they looked at my name and
they just assume.
Yeah,
it's crazy. That's a different topic.
Yeah,
but go ahead.
So I got a lot of exposures to different groups of Black people. But I think the most diversity, I see people from the islands, different part of Africa, Kenyans, some places. I think there was a couple of Ghanaians, Ghanaians, and stuff like that. Kind of have an understanding of the similarities and the differences across the culture, which I guess is unique now. At the time, it was just regular, like, oh, we're all Black out here. But moving out of around the time at 15, so I finished my high school in Delaware. That was very white, very, very white. Not used to it.
Right.
It felt like a fish out of the ocean. Like, this is a lot.
Right.
In the sense of,
what part of Delaware was it?
Middletown, like Middletown Town.
Oh, where?
In terms of, it's a culture shock.
I don't even know much about Delaware. I don't even know why I asked.
He's just curious.
It was a culture shock, and even some conversation some of the folks would be having, I'm like, it's weird. Like, I think the first thing that put me off when I moved to Delaware was a lot of, as the Caucasian kids, they'd be like, oh, I didn't get my coffee today. It's going to be a long day. I'm like, why do you we're like 14, 15. Like, we get up like this all the time.
Yeah.
Like, we have energy. And talking about Starbucks and Ugg boots and stuff like that. I'm like, I don't know. It's kind of weird. Maybe I was behind the times, but I was like, I'm not interested in none of this. Led Zeppelin, Pink Floyd.
Interesting.
Like, who are these people?
Interesting.
I had like nothing in common. Well, not nothing, but for the most part, nothing I like to engage with and nothing I would like to learn. So I kind of found, this, I'm outside of my own world. Right. And then adapting to that was kind of difficult. And I don't think I've adapted to it. So even going to corporate, going to college, stuff like that, there's this kind of difference or bridge I can't shift in this kind of, people in this realm.
Right.
So it's kind of easier, in the Black community or minority or immigrant communities, it's easier for me to like maneuver. But in this, I guess, predominantly white space, it's more like, I'm not sure, how to connect, how to engage. And some things are, we all speak English, but there's an undertone when you speak into different communities. It's kind of hard to understand sometimes. So it's weird. I think that's the only thing I'm kind of...
But it's also this battle of acceptance.
For sure.
You know what I mean? Like, I think, Toby, what you were sharing when you interacting with some of your white friends or Caucasian friends, they talking about Starbucks. Yeah, they're talking about, you know what I mean? And I think in our head, it's just interesting to be like, part of like you just saying like, when it's also social cue. This is how you start really talking about class. You know, and sometimes when you also grow up in a certain household, in African, when you don't have it, your mom be like, "That's not for me. That's this is not." You know what I mean? If you can't have it, then just push back and resent. It's not for you, and that's a way to make yourself feel like
protected.
Like but it's also, and I feel like sometimes it's a coping mechanism, but sometimes it's also like you actually adjusting your expectation in the moment, because you start coming in contact with your peers. Well, like, being that age, you kind of just want to be accepted. Because you're like, we all the same age. I don't want you to treat me differently. But you start to really jump into, like, you start to come in contact with some of your friends who come from money. Who talks about something. They get cars. They got this and that. But you don't want it to make it look like at the end of the day, like you're different from them. Because, and part of that, sometimes you just completely reject that. Right? Or no?
Yeah, I guess completely reject. My issue wasn't getting acceptance or fitting in. I think my issue is just to understand it's a different breed, it's a different system. So back to what you're saying. So let's say, this new system, Starbucks and Uggs, I'm not used to that. But also if I go back to the Black community, a lot of people are wearing Jordans and name brands, but that's not my thing. I don't accept it, but we're still relatable. I never paid for Jordans in my life, and I still won't. I never understood that concept of why people pay so much money, especially if you don't got it, for the kids to have it. Again, not all people, but some accepted. But then just like you said, straddling that line, I'm used to that over there, but over here I'm like, this is different. This is a different level. Like you said, a lot of people had cars, like, as soon as they turn 15, 16, the parents buy them brand new cars. They're driving to school.
They are.
I'm like,
but one thing I will also say, I'm glad we're having this conversation. It's just like being in America and being African. A lot of us are having this conversation to ourselves. But most of the time, like, we don't come together often and talk about these internal conflict that we have in between. Like the tradition of, like, you want to obtain your culture. Also, like, if I try to try something new, I feel like I'm going to lose myself, right? And part of that, and perfect example, like, we all look at surfing as, when you hear surfing, you just think, what, is that a Black people's sport or white people's sport?
Definitely white.
That's white people's sport, right?
Funny, originated in Africa.
That's crazy.
So again, history matters. Toby the historian.
Fact check that.
But surfing is like, seemed like a white people's sport. So for me, it's like, hey, I was like going up to a like place like Cape Cod, who's a very white place, and I'm seeing all these people just surfing. I was like, I could easily be in that moment, man. This is not for me. What am I doing? A Black kid just on the surfboard, like trying to. But I kind of like just be like, I'm gonna try this, and I realized, like, this is fun. It's cool. And then once I start really like jumping myself into some of these like activities that might be different culture or different from you, but you realize, like, at the end of the day, like, it's just a basic sports. So what I'm saying too is, sometimes let's not get too caught up into our own thought, or our own, like, this is who I want to be perspective. Also, like, take advantage of the opportunity. If you are in a space where you have the privilege, this is what I'm talking about, how privileged we are, right? If you're in a space where you have the privilege,
we have choices.
You have choice. So it comes with choices. And again, this is, we started with talking about how privileged, but you come in contact where you're able to dive into I'm not saying, like, again, I think this goes back to Toby's point. You got to kind of really do some self reflection to be like, this is for you. But what I'm also going to tell people, like, who are in this sort of space, it's okay for you to, like, jump in and experience these new things, because you learn something about yourself, but also, like, some of these sort of, like, experience you learn will serve you later on.
Yeah.
Like Toby, like, you know, like we've been talking about.
Right.
Like it allow you to navigate this diverse space, and these diverse space come in once you kind of get into this professional space, right? And being able to relate to people.
Right.
And you realize those are assets.
So you know how to surf?
I do. I mean, I'm not saying I'm good at it, but I took surfing lessons. I've been like every summer I go. I only do once every summer, right? So what I'm saying, like I'm not great at it, but like I would get on that surfboard. I put my surf suit on and I'll jump in and I'll do it because I've been doing it for a while. So yeah, so that's just an example that I want to like put it out there. That I just feel like a lot of us sometimes will see different things and be like, that's not for me. But when you have that conversation, I'm also pushing you to like, yo, just try it out.
It's real. Yeah. It's real.
This is the last comment I'm gonna make because I know we're a bit over time.
We gotta run out.
Yeah. So one thing I was interested in when I was little was skateboarding.
Right.
Got a skateboard, got all of that.
Nice.
But you know, in the time, no black people were skating.
Right.
And there wasn't no YouTube or nothing, so I had to learn on my own. But I could never run it outside. I cannot get clowned. They cannot see me with this. I rode. Thank God we had a basement. I rode in the basement trying to learn some things, but outside with my skateboard was a no-go.
Yeah. What were you worried about? What can you be outside? What can you be outside? You don't want to.
I guess it's not really acceptance, but you know, if you're different, you have to get ready to be clowned, and if you know, and then once you're getting clowned, you have to go back and forth.
You lost your status,
and then once you get demoted, and then once you start going back and forth,
you lose your friends.
You're gonna people catch hands pretty quickly, and then so here's another thing. This is a little bit of a tangent. One thing that kind of surprised me once, you know, I was growing up. And it was a little bit very different from an African household. So at the time, you know, if you fight in school, you know, kids fight all the time. It's whatever. But I don't know when it started, but if you fight, some household, if you lose your parents, some household, not everybody, will encourage you to find that kid, and you better win before you come back home.
Right.
I'm not sure if you experienced that. But I was like, that is wild. Or even the parents who will drive their kids with them to find who beat them up and they have to settle it. I was like, yo, this is wild. I was like, this is wild. I was like, that's why I never got into any issues outside my house. If it's not people I know, I'm like, that is crazy. I don't know. And then I don't know how my parents will react. Like, this is the norm out here, but yo, that's my last comment.
My parents would have beat me. In the first 5. Let me. I might cut that part out of my parents, even though you know how it is. But
respectfully, though.
Yeah, respectfully. But this is good. Before we wrap up, I think we should talk about one. Before we wrap up, talk about one or two highlights from the talk show this year. From the interviews that we've had, one or two points that just really resonated with us from a guest, or that you thought was a highlight. I'll say Senzwa. I like Senzwa's interview a lot, but something that stood out to me in the beginning of that interview, he talked about contextualizing your struggle, and that point he made is really resonated with us. This idea of walking in gratitude and realizing, and this is how I interpreted it and how I see it, the time that we live in the world. You can think about all this war going on, economic climate, this and that. But at the end of the day, this is still a great time to be alive in history, in the history of the world. When you think about all the technological advances, when we think about like the fact that we even have this iPhone, we have a whole mega computer in our hands, and so like since why he mentioned his dad fighting through apartheid and certain things.
Wait, which sense from?
He's half South African, half Jamaican. Yeah, and how that's not my reality. I'm not fighting in through apartheid or slavery or some of these.
Kids are fighting slavery at this age. I mean, this day and age. I'm like, that's wow.
What's that?
I say if somebody's still fighting slavery, at this day and age, that's wild.
So that's something that just really resonated with me. Walking gratitude.
Yeah. So to build on to what Aki said, for me is like I actually two guests. I think Colin.
Okay.
When we had Colin, and he talking about like knowing your why. So I just think that really resonated with me because like we are like in this constant journey of trying to figure out our why, like who we are. Yeah. And I think you want to get to a certain place in your life where the work that you do, the impact that you make, it's a reflection of your values. And when you grind yourself into your why, and you're able to actually translate that into actions, and it become part of like your daily things that you do, and then you have this sense of fulfillment. You have this sense of gratitude because you could wake up every day and you like, wow, like I'm working, but I could wake up, I could do this every day. Like
purpose-driven life.
You have a sense of purpose, right? So for me, like that really resonates. So it's just kind of like, I'm at the point in my life right now, if people come up to me and ask me, hey, do you want to be part of this project? Do you want to do this? Man, the first question that actually come in my mind, it's like, okay, is this part of my why? If it's not part of my why, I don't want none of it. Yeah. I don't want none of it because I love to work hard, but at the end of the day, I'm also at a point in my life right now. I want to work smarter, not harder. I want to try to really put more emphasis in like what really makes me happy, like what this life is about. So like that goes back to like know your why. Yeah. And then, so that really resonated with me. The other thing is when we had Kalina. The creative writer, like, it's just like she talked this about taking risk. Yeah. And not being afraid to fail. A lot of us are like get so comfortable with just being in a space where we are comfortable, not taking this risk, whether that is like your job, whether that is you in a relationship, or whether that is anything where you kind of just want to play safe. Do you want to be somebody who always plays safe, or do you want to be willing to take that risk? Because if you never take that risk, you're never gonna know what you're capable of. Right. So for me, like, we're capable of doing so much that
regret is a lot worse than failure.
We sometimes, and then sometimes we have this thing in our head where you constantly, it's okay, like it's easy to victimize yourself, but you're not a victim. Yeah. As long as you have the mindset to really like willing to take the risk, and if your mind is on it, if your heart is in it, I believe you're gonna do it. You could do it, but you're not a victim of anything. So I internalize that. Yeah. Like if I want something, and this is something that my mind is on it, I'm willing to take the risk to get there. Because at the end of the day, I want to look back and I say like I have no regret. Yeah. I give everything. If I fail, cool. But if I succeed, you betcha I'm gonna enjoy it. But that's
no what ifs.
Exactly. So again, those are the two episodes. All the guesses are great, but those are the two of my biggest takeaway this year.
I think mine was when we had Steph on. And there's one specific question he asked. He said, who qualifies who tells you if you're qualified to do something? Once you enter a room or once you start something.
Nice.
And then took me a second. I was like, oh, yourself. Yeah. And once, there's a lot of ambiguity to life, and we all have aspirations. And sometimes when you do reach that aspirations, you're like, at least for me, do I deserve it? Can I do more than this? You have folks that that's way smarter than you, but they haven't done the things you're trying to do. Yeah. And you have to make that decision every step that you make. Are you going to make yourself qualified for whatever your next big goal is? Which was a paradigm shift. Because with some level of, I guess, success, you can say, or mobility from where we started, coming out of college to where we are now. There's some struggle with, imposter syndrome or survivor's remorse or a whole lot of negative things that come with success, which was not what you expect, And it's, I don't know, it's just something you have to, or I still need to keep recognizing within myself and trying to pull it in of, I have to make myself qualified, or I am qualified to do something. Yeah.
Cool. So last question. One word to describe this year as we close out. One word that come to you. How do you sum up this whole year based on our
the show and the show, or just life in general?
Just life in general for this year, like one word to sum up.
For me, growth.
Growth.
Blessings.
Blessing. And for me, it's resilient. Yeah.
Well, this has been one hell of a 2022.
Yep.
We made it to the end of a year.
Yep.
We want to wish everyone who's tuned in with us on Pepper Soup Talk to keep watching our shows, to keep giving us feedback, because we hear it and we're taking it. And we want to wish you a blessed entrance into 2023. And we will be back at you with another episode next year.
2023.
2023.
Sounds good.
Cool.